Hello everyone, in this video we're just going to deploy a virtual machine skill set, and I'm kind of going to model it based on this particular resource that you have from Microsoft. The only main difference I'm going to have, I'm not going to use the West US for the deployment because I was having some trouble with this earlier, and I'm going to deploy my resources in the East US location. Other than that, you can review this for further detail. So what we'll do, we want to create a YAML file, okay, and the file has it's a YAML file. It's just telling you that the package nginx is going to be written, and we are going to deploy nginx, and we're going to start the nginx service, and the HTML page is serving hello world from virtual machine ScaleSet. So to do that, what we'll do, I'm just gonna get rid of it one time and reopen it, and we'll start. So first, let's see. So this one, what we'll do code, and then cloud-init.yaml, init.yaml. So we have this package. Okay, so all you need to do is copy this and put it in there, and then save it. Okay, and once you save it, you can close this one out. So go back, and the next thing that we're gonna do, we're gonna create a resource group, but I'm gonna create it in the East US. Okay, so paste, and this should create a resource group in the East US. So I need to change the resource group name, scaleset RG East. Okay, that's the name I'm going to use. Okay, since I changed that, scalesetrg East RG, I'm going to change this to East resource group RG East RG. I'm just changing the resource group because I already have a resource group in another region. Okay, so that's good. So now I can create a virtual machine skill set. It's really simple. You're just gonna say, you're gonna name that as webServerScaleSet. We're gonna use a Ubuntu image for that. It's gonna upgrade the automatic policy. It's gonna use the cloud-init, and admin username is this. It's gonna create SSH-keys for authentication. Okay, so let's just hit enter, and we'll see what happens. And it started running in the background. Not in the background, it's just running. Just give it a second. VMSS may take just a little bit of time. So if you can go to the resource group, resource groups, it's not even showing your resource group that we created. So you gotta click on the refresh button a couple times, and it should show up. Now this resource group we are not using, so you can really go over there, delete it. Because West has some problem with VMSS deployment, so that's why we are not using West US at this time. And the scaleset RG East is where we are deploying. So if you can see, it says one ARM template deployment is going on. So it says one deploying, and we are creating a webServerScaleSet. So if you go in there, okay, you may see some of the stuff already. Yeah, so here it's running, but it's creating whatever is needed to have a full instance of the virtual machine skill set for us. From this one, you can see we have overview, activity log, again access control tags, instance networking. Scaling is where we probably going to spend a lot of time. Disk, operating system, security, size, extensions, continuous delivery, configuration. Another area we'll probably spend some time. Health and repair, upgrade policy, identity, properties, logs. A lot of features they're similar. And then under monitoring we have insights, alerts, and metrics. Okay, so over here it looks like this deployment is now done. Okay, so this deployment is now successful. So what you would see if I go to this resource group and look at the deployment, it should say once succeeded, right? So I know my deployment is now successful. So at this time, so we have created the virtual machine scale set. Now we need to add a health probe. And to add the health probe, what we want to do, we want to use the port 80 to check for how if the service is running properly or not. Let's see, so over here all I need to do is get this hold on, yeah, LB probe, and then we're going to run this command again, okay, and hit enter. So it should be adding a health probe for us as we speak. And this is the resource group, that's why I couldn't see anything. So this what is my refresh? If you do refresh on it, you should see this scale set. Go back to the scale set again, and pretty much if you see whole health probe, there is nothing there. Once this command is done, I would expect something to show up in here. So it looks like this command is done. So what I'll do, I'll refresh the page again and look at that, this webServerHealth. So if you want to do it using the UI, you could have also done that. You could have said just add from here and name, protocol, port, interval, and unhealthy threshold. You can define all that from the UI. So if you look at this right now, its name is webServerHealth, HTTP protocol, port 80, root is the path, interval in every 15 seconds, the amount of time between probe attempts, and unhealthy number of consecutive probe failures that must occur before a virtual machine is considered unhealthy is only 2. Okay, so that's where that's how we have the health probe defined. Alright, once we have our probe defined, you still need some rules. So when we found the problem and we know the server health is not good, what do you need to do? So that's where you need to also configure your load balancer rule, and you can run this command right here. Okay, and we're going to study the command just a little. Over here, let's go back to our CLI window and paste it. So it's gonna create a network load balancer rule. Again, we are providing the resource group. The rule name is going to be the web server load balancer rule web. Load balancer name, webServerScaleSet load balancer. Probe name, webServerHealth. Now here is what you are now configuring. You got to configure the backend pool. What is the name? webServerScaleSetLB pool. Backend port is 80. Front-end IP, load balancer front-end port is 80. Protocol is TCP. So if you hit enter, it should start configuring our load balancer rule. And again, you can also do this from here. So once you create your health probe, really what you're doing, you're going to go to the load balancing rule. Right there you have nothing. Right now it's got created. So if you refresh this one more time, you may have to do a hard refresh. So let's do a hard refresh on it. Leave. And there we go. There is the rule. So if you click on it now, okay, here's the name of this particular webServerScaleSet rule, and here's the front-end IP address, TCP port, backend port is both 80, backend pool, health probe that we have already configured. So if you click on it, that's the health probe that we have configured. Session, persistence none. So if you need sessions persistence, you can go with the client IP or client IP and protocol. idle timeout is 4 and floating IP is disabled. So if you go to front-end IP configurations, okay, you see that you have already configured your front-end IP, okay, and it's used by this rule and this pool and this pool, 3 pools. Then backend pool is where we have to assign the virtual machine scale set that we have created. Okay, so that's the virtual machine scale set, and we are saying that go to this virtual network, okay, where we have this webServerScaleSet, okay, with this web-ac7, this config IP address. This is where we have our virtual machine scale set available. Okay, so front end is your IP, back end is your virtual machine scale set. Health probe is really looking at your server running at port 80 and checking whether everything is fine. And load balancing, if it's not fine, what do you need to do? Okay, that's what is being determined. Alright, so let's come back over here. So we have done all of that. So okay, now you can do some testing on the virtual machine scale set. Okay, so on the overview page, you know the IP address of the virtual machine scale set. So over here, you can go to the overview page, and this usually gives you the IP address, right? So you can click on that one, and you can try to go to that IP from the browser, and you see one thing immediately: hello world from the virtual machine scale set. So that's what we deployed. So I know that this scale set is working just fine. Okay, so what else do we need to check? SKU basic is good. Okay, let's see what else are they asking to check. Under settings, select instances, verify that scale sets are running to VMs. So let's see how many instances are running. Settings, where are my instances? Oh, we are at the load balancer level. We gotta go, I think we gotta go to our skill set, and then under skill set we gotta go to that. So this is the web server. So let's come back over here, webServerScaleSet. Okay, here's the IP address 57.152.137.157. So if you notice, we got the IP address from the load balancer as well. So both load balancer and this web server, they both got the same IP address. Now from here under settings, if I go to instances, this we do have 2 scale sets is running. Okay, so that's what we need to verify. Select operating system, verify VMs are running UbuntuLinux. So you can also come over here and click on the operating system, and it's going to tell you what kind of operating system you have that's running these VMs. It says Linux, Ubuntu Server 18.04 LTS. So that looks good. Size, and it should be DS1v2. So let's look at the size. It's DS1v2, so that's what is selected. So that's good. Okay, now next thing we need to check web server, go to the IP address. We have already done that, so no need. Configure the virtual machine scale set is the next thing. What else do you need to do to configure the scale set that we have now? Alright, let's see if we can scale out our application. So to do that, we have a nice guide over here. So pretty much we'll come back over here. We'll go to our webServerScaleSet, and let's see, and we need to go to the virtual machine scale set. So that's what it is, the virtual machine scale set. And in here if you click on the scaling, as I said in the very beginning part of the video, that we will be spending a lot of time here. So here you have two options. Okay, manual, you can do that, or you can do custom scale. Okay, so that's, and if you look at it, here's the first button, configure. Then you can have scaling policy, and default policy is always there. Okay, balances across availability zones and fault domain, then detect virtual machine with highest instance ID. So that's always in there. You can see the run history when your rule was triggered for the last time. JSON is again the ARM template. Notify, you can only notify when autoscale is enabled, and you can also have the diagnostic setting enabled. Alright, so in here, override condition, manual scale or instance count is set to 2, and there is nothing much to configure except instance count. You can increase or you can decrease, okay, back to 2. So that's your default. Okay, so we are not changing anything, but we're going to come down to the custom auto scale policy. If you come to custom auto scale policy, then you have a lot more options that you can configure. Auto scale setting name. Okay, here is our setting name, resource group. Then by default, auto created scale condition is done, and it's doing a scale based on a metric. You can also do scale to a specific instant count. Okay, now you can say we can only have 10 instances. Okay, let's stick to this one. And this one, no metric rules defined. Okay, so you need to use a rule to be able to scale out or scale in. Now, when you're defining this, you can also say what is my minimum number of instances, what is the maximum, what is the default. Okay, so let's see what these guys are doing over here. Scale mode, scale metric. So they are adding a metric which we know that we need to add. So this time we're going to add current resource average percentage CPU. So let's try that. So add a rule, and current resource is fine. Time aggregation metric, namespace metric name, person CPU. So far everything is good. Operator greater than 75%. So operator. Why do I not have that greater than available to me? Time aggregation average. Let's see, I must be missing something. Current resource average, person CPU average. Current resource average, person CPU. Oh, it's over here. So VM name, you don't have to do anything. Okay, I always get confused with this one. So come down to over here, and here is your operator. So this operator is different. Okay, come down to here, greater than, and then we're asking 75% threshold. So change that to 75. And if you look at the tooltip, this is the value of the metric that auto scale service checks against, so as to evaluate whether to initiate a scale action or not. Okay, so we are saying at 75%, when it goes above 75%, we're going to do something. So what is the duration? 10 minutes. Operations, what operation do you need to do? Increase count by, and how many counts do you want? Count by 1. Cooldown is 5. Okay, that looks good. So click add. So now you have one rule: when scale out, when this virtual machine scale set average CPU is higher than 75%. Now here, this is another thing that you have to configure: instance limits, minimum, maximum, and default. Okay, instance limit. Okay, they're asking us to do a scale in rule first, so let's add the scale in rule before we do anything else. So add another rule. So metric source is fine. Here it has to be less than now 50%. So usage drops below 50%, right? 50%, and decrease by 1 is my rule. Decrease by 1. If everything looks good, so hit add. So now what you see, there are two rules. I'm just double checking, make sure this is metric, duration, average time, statistics, operation. So this I didn't check properly. So it should be decrease count by 1. Okay. And the thing that I noticed here, when and or, that's not right. So just click on update, and here's scale out. Now it's very clear, like scale out when average person CPU goes above 75. Scale in when average person CPU usage is less than 50%. Okay. So now we can select save. So here what I would say, instance limits 1, maximum 2, default 1. That's probably doesn't make much sense. So minimum is 2, maximum say 4, and default is 2. Okay, so minimum 2, default 2, that's my minimum. So I'm saying, okay, if it happens, keep adding one more VM to the pool, but only at max you should have only 4 VMs, no more than that. And once you started dropping, it never should go back below 2. So the minimum number of instances always running should always be true, always be 2. So at this time we can select save, and that should create your autoscale rule, custom autoscale rule. So this is going fairly well. Let's see what else do we need to do. The default scale condition now contains 2 scale rules. One rule scales the number of instances out, another back in. So next thing that we can do is install an update application in VirtualMachineScaleSet. But I think for this video, I'm just gonna pause it over here. So what we have done in this video, we have really used your CLI to deploy our VirtualMachineScaleSet. We started with a resource group. We created the VirtualMachineScaleSet. We created the health probe. Based on the health probe, we created a load balancer. And then what we did, we came back. We have defined our VirtualMachineScaleSet rules the way we want them to scale out and scale in. Alright. If you're practicing for the 303, 304 exam, be sure to be comfortable with all these rules, and I fully expect that you might see some questions regarding this configuration in the exam. Good luck.